I don't know how parents do it. Oh, no, I'm not talking about the easy thing about little kids. I'm talking about dealing with teenagers. When I was a teen, I was good, very good. I was a good student, didn't get in trouble, involved in lots of activities. But there was one thing that I knew without a doubt, and that was that my father knew absolutely nothing. No, I mean, Stu, he was, as far as the 16-year-old boy, teen was concerned, my father was absolutely stupid. A prime example of this was, if you remember in the mid-80s, that the stock market really started to go up after that recession in the early 80s. And I remember looking at my father in 1987 early and saying, Dad, you should invest. I mean, this stock market, it's going to keep going up, 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 up. And, you know, it was in the 2000s at that point. Now we're at 18,000, but hey. And my dad looked at me and said, son, what comes up will eventually go down. He said, mark my words, this stock market is not going to last. Well, come October, because I was such a good kid, my parents went away for a week on a conference. I was home alone. No problem, they would check in every day. Well, Monday, October 19th, 1987 came along, and that was, if you remember, Black Monday, when the stock market crashed 22% in one day. 22%. Now, when my parents called that night to check in on me, my dad called. And before he asked me how I was doing, and there was none of that pleasantry, he simply said, so, did you hear the news about the stock market today? I had to eat a little bit of humble pie. It was a good lesson. You know, but let's be honest, I think we all teens sort of live by the phrase that Mark Twain is quoted to say. When he was 18, he couldn't believe how little his father knew, and when he was 21, he couldn't believe how much his father learned in 3 years. You know, now that I'm in my 40s, I realize how smart of a man my father is, and how little I still have, how little I know, and how much I still have to learn. But the fact is, human beings, if we have some bit of knowledge of whatever kind, we like to be right. Come on, be honest. If you're in an argument with somebody, don't you want to be right? You might even be one of these people who will argue something even though you know it's wrong just to be right. I mean, we're in a world right now where people are fighting left and right over what is right and what is wrong. You see it in the workplace, you see it in schools, you see it in religion. You definitely see it in politics. And the problem is we are so right about our side that we end up being like this. You know, we're head to head. It's so impossible to see the other side because, well, we're so tunnel vision. You know, I've had many discussions with individuals who would say that they have a family member who is a fundamentalist Christian. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that they're a fundamentalist Christian, and when they find out that they go to the Episcopal Church, well, needless to say, sometimes they start having some arguments, and they say, what should we do? What can I do about that? What can I say? The truth is, if you have somebody who's put up a wall, there's not much conversation that you can have. When people are right, they know they are right. Now, this morning we hear this bit of scripture where Jesus tells a story, tells his disciples about what's going to happen to him. That he's going to suffer and die. Now Peter, who can be a bit abrupt at times. I mean, he was a little rough around the edges. Remember, he was a fisherman. Most fishermen I know are a bit rough around the edges. But, you know, Peter was also a very good Jew. And he knew that, as everyone did, that the Messiah was coming. And the Messiah, the anointed one, would do one thing. And that would be to rescue the Jewish people from the hands of the Romans. And allow them to have their state again, their kingdom, and to be able to worship God without the influence of somebody else. That, my friends, is what the Messiah was going to be. And when Peter signed up to go along and follow Jesus, that's the man who he thought he was going to follow. Now, if you dropped everything in your life to follow somebody because you thought that one thing was going to happen, and then you find out from them that what your whole thought for them was going to be is completely not true, it's completely opposite, you might be a bit annoyed, to say the least. A little angry. I dropped everything to follow you, and this is what you're going to do? You're going to go die on me now? You're not going to rescue us and save us from the Romans? So Peter was so upset that he goes to Jesus in front of everyone. Remember, Jesus is a teacher. He's a rabbi. He's the one who everyone looked up to, and Peter, according to Scripture, rebukes Jesus. He took him to the tool shed and he let him have it. There was no question in his mind that Jesus was completely wrong and he was going to put Jesus right in his place. Because in his mind, what Jesus was saying couldn't possibly be true, because that's not what he thought the Messiah was going to be. But God sent Jesus to be the Messiah, the anointed one, for another reason. That was to be, as Isaiah talks about, to be the suffering servant. The one who would open up the gates of heaven not only to the Jews but to the Gentiles, to males and females, to the slaves and the free. That's the Messiah who Jesus knew he was. And any other talk about trying to be a Messiah to rescue him and others from the Romans, that's evil talk as far as Jesus is concerned. And so in front of everyone, Jesus takes Peter and he rebukes him back. He tells him off, and he even says, "Get behind me, Satan." Because what Peter wanted wasn't what God wanted. See, the evil one, whatever you want to call it, Satan, the devil, evil, always wants to drag us down a view where we think that, oh, God really wouldn't care if we do this. Or maybe we'll just like cross our fingers and hope God doesn't see us. Jesus knew that in order to be the person he was called to be, he had to go to Jerusalem. He had to take that path, to walk the way of the cross, to die on the cross in order that we all might live. Jesus goes on to say that there's even more than that if we really want to be his followers, If we really want to follow Jesus, we need to deny ourselves and take up our cross and follow him. Now, how many of you are wearing crosses in here today? Show of hands, there's a few of you. Yeah, okay. You ever wearing some crosses? There's a cross right there, right? There's a cross up there. There's a cross in the narthex. In fact, you can go around this church, you're going to see lots of crosses. You know, we see these crosses. We know they're a symbol of Christianity, right? But I want to put another image in your mind. When you see the cross, think of the electric chair. Think of the firing squad. Think of the lethal injection table. Think of the guillotine. Think of the rope and the noose. The cross, my friends, is an instrument of death. And Jesus, as if we really want to follow him, we need to take up our cross, that instrument of death, in order to be his disciples. Now, a lot of people use, oh, it's my cross to bear. That's not what Jesus is talking about at all. Well, yeah, you know what? We're all going to be sick. We're all going to be sick. We're all going to have family problems. Those aren't the crosses Jesus is talking about. He's talking about if we really want to be a follower of him, then we are going to have to go against what the evil ones of the world want us to do. We have to deny what we want necessarily of Jesus in order to follow the path that he sets before us. And if we really follow him, if we take up that cross, we are going to be persecuted in some way, shape, or form. Sure, in this country, we probably are not going to die for that. But look what just happened in Libya. The 21 martyrs who were killed at the hands of ISIS. Why? Because they were followers of Jesus Christ. Do people look at you and say, oh yeah, when I see you, I know you're a Christian? Or do people look at you and say, Alan goes to church? Sorry, Nancy wasn't sitting right there, so But you see, if we're really going to follow Jesus, we need to put aside our own expectations, our own necessarily desires, to pick up our crossbeams and live and walk that life that Christ is asking us to walk. I can guarantee if you walk that walk, my friends, it's not going to be easy. It will be filled with some potholes and landmines. There may be persecution. But Jesus truly is the Messiah. From the cross, he did conquer. He conquered Rome. He conquered death. And he saves us all. Peter learned a lot that day. He had to eat a lot of humble pie. He had to grow up a bit, just like I had to when I was a teen. But because he grew up, he was one of the greatest witnesses to Jesus Christ. And he himself died for him. Let us join Peter. Let us take up our crosses. Let us follow Jesus today. And let us do our best to bring peace, hope, and love to this war-torn world. Amen.